It all started like any other normal Tinder match, no red flags, no signs of trouble. Her name was Anna, and she was beautiful, funny, and sharp. She had this dry sense of humor that made her profile stand out from the usual flood of selfies and gym pics. We started chatting, and before I knew it, we were texting every day. At first, it was exciting. She would text me good morning, send funny memes, and ask about my day. Then it became a little overwhelming. If I didn't reply within 5 minutes, I'd get another text, then another. Hey, are you there? Did you get my message? Hello. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just enthusiastic. I mean, isn't that what people want in a relationship? Someone who cares. I convinced myself that she was just really into me. Then it escalated. One night, after a long day at work, I came home and decided to unplug for the evening. No texts, no social media. I just wanted to binge-watch some shows and order takeout. I ignored her texts for a few hours, which didn't seem like a big deal, until my phone started blowing up. I had 37 unread messages from her. 37. And not just messages. There were missed calls, too. I stared at my phone in disbelief. The text started innocently enough, "Hey, what are you up to? You okay?" But as the night wore on, they got increasingly unhinged. "Why are you ignoring me? Are you talking to someone else? You better not be ghosting me." The final one said, "I know where you live." I paused. That was a joke, right? Right? I typed back, "Hey, sorry, just took a break from my phone. Everything okay?" Instantly, she replied, "Oh, thank God. I thought something had happened to you. I'm actually nearby, I could stop by if you want." Nearby? I hadn't told her where I lived. I texted back, "How do you know where I live?" Her response was quick, "You mentioned the coffee shop down your street once. I figured it out from there. I'm just a few blocks away." Now, I'm not proud of this, but I panicked. I started thinking about all the times I'd casually mentioned details of my life to her, where I worked, what neighborhood I lived in, which bar I frequented with friends. She'd pieced it all together, and now she was in my area. I told her not to come over and that I was tired. Her response: "Too late, I'm already outside." My heart dropped. I ran to the window, peeking through the blinds, and sure enough, there she was. Just standing there, in the middle of the street, staring up at my building like a scene out of a horror movie. I ducked down and hid, my heart racing. I texted her, "You need to leave. This is getting weird." She replied, "I'm not leaving until you come down." At this point, I knew I had to do something, so I called a friend. He came over after what felt like an eternity, and when he arrived, I cautiously peeked outside. She was gone. Over the next few days, the texts continued, but I ignored them, hoping she would take the hint. She didn't. She started leaving notes on my car windshield, small gifts at my door. I blocked her number, deleted Tinder, and told everyone about the crazy girl I met online. Eventually, the messages stopped. I'd like to think she moved on, but sometimes, I still get this weird feeling that she's watching. And every now and then, I'll find a small gift on my doorstep. I laugh it off to my friends, but inside, I know it's her. Her profile name was Lily. She looked like any other girl on Tinder, casual, with a kind smile in her photos, and just enough normalcy to make her seem approachable. Her bio was simple, just looking to meet someone new. No red flags, no wild claims, just a normal girl in a city full of strangers. After a few days of texting, I was surprised at how easy it was to talk to her. We joked about bad Tinder dates, shared memes, and even talked about our favorite movies. I suggested meeting up for coffee, but she countered with dinner. I liked that she took initiative, so I agreed. She recommended a place I'd never been to, a small, intimate restaurant tucked away in a quiet part of town. I googled it and found glowing reviews, so I figured it was a good choice. I arrived about 20 minutes early, always preferring to avoid the awkwardness of arriving second. The restaurant had this old-world charm, dimly lit, with candles flickering on every table and soft music playing in the background. I found a cozy corner table and waited, glancing at the door every few minutes as other couples and groups trickled in. 10 minutes after our agreed time, I saw her walk in. Lily. She was even prettier in person, with long dark hair and a delicate smile that seemed to light up the room. I stood to greet her, my nerves kicking in, but as she approached, I noticed something I couldn't quite put my finger on. She moved, differently. A bit too stiff, almost mechanical, as though she was hyper-aware of each step she took. But when she smiled at me, all of that faded into the background. "Hey," she said softly, her voice smooth but somehow, off. I couldn't place why. "Hey, good to finally meet you," I replied, trying to match her energy. We shook hands, and the moment her skin touched mine, a shiver shot up my arm. Her hand was ice cold. Not in the way people get from being outside on a chilly night. This was different, unnatural. Her skin didn't feel soft or warm. Instead, it had this waxy, almost rubbery texture. But I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just nervous or cold from the weather outside. It wasn't that big of a deal. We sat down, ordered drinks, and started chatting. The conversation flowed easily at first, talking about work, hobbies, the usual. But as the night went on, things started to shift. Little things began to stand out. When I asked her about her job, she told me she was a graphic designer, but when I asked her to explain what she liked about it, she hesitated. It's creative," she said with a slight laugh, but her eyes flicked away for a moment, as if she was searching for an answer. I didn't think much of it at first. People get nervous on dates, right? But then, it happened again. I asked her what she had been up to earlier that day, and she paused for what felt like too long. "Honestly, I can't even remember," she said, laughing again, but this time her laughter seemed forced, like she was trying to mask her discomfort. I smiled, trying to keep the conversation light. "I'm sure it'll come back to you. I get forgetful sometimes too." But in the back of my mind, alarms were starting to go off. As the evening progressed, more gaps appeared in her memory. When I asked her about her family, she gave me a vague answer, like she was pulling from a script. When I tried to dig deeper, she would brush it off with that same nervous laugh. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. Midway through the meal, I excused myself to the bathroom. As I washed my hands, I stared into the mirror, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling building inside me. "It's just nerves," I told myself. "She's probably just awkward on first dates." But when I returned to the table, she was sitting there, staring at her phone. Her posture was stiff again, like a mannequin propped up at the table. Her head jerked up as I approached, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach flip. "Everything okay?" I asked, sliding back into my seat. She blinked a few times, her smile returning almost mechanically. "Yeah, everything's fine." We continued talking, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She barely touched her food, and when I asked her how she liked it, she said it was good, but there was something vacant in her eyes, like she wasn't really there. After we finished eating, she excused herself to go to the bathroom. I nodded, figuring I'd pay the bill while she was gone. I waved the waiter over and asked for the check, but as I glanced at her empty chair, something gnawed at me. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I started to fidget, checking my phone and glancing toward the bathroom. What was taking her so long? 15 minutes in, I flagged down the waiter, feeling uneasy. "Excuse me," I said. "Could you check on my date?" She's been in the bathroom for a while. The waiter gave me a puzzled look. Your date, sir? Yeah, she went to the bathroom a while ago. Could you check if she's okay? The waiter's expression shifted, his brow furrowing in confusion. Sir, you've been dining alone. I felt my heart skip a beat. What do you mean? My date, Lily, she's been sitting with me all night. He shook his head slowly. I've been serving you all evening. You came in alone. No one has joined you. My skin prickled with cold dread. I turned back to the table, half expecting to see her plate and drink, but they were gone. The chair was empty, the table clear, as if no one had ever sat there. My mouth went dry, and I felt a creeping sense of terror coil around my chest. That's impossible, I muttered, standing up and glancing around the restaurant. My pulse was racing, panic setting in. Had I imagined her? Was this some kind of twisted prank? But I had seen her. I had talked to her. We had eaten together. I rushed to the bathroom, my heart pounding in my ears. I knocked on the door, calling her name, but there was no response. I pushed it open and stepped inside, only to find it completely empty. No sign of her. No trace that she had ever been there. I staggered back out into the restaurant, my mind spinning. The waiter was watching me, his expression wary, as if he was dealing with someone who had lost their grip on reality. Maybe I was losing it. But the memories of our conversation, the cold touch of her hand, the way she smiled, it all felt so real. Desperate for answers, I pulled out my phone and opened Tinder. I scrolled through my matches, searching for her profile. But Lily's profile was gone. No messages. No match. No trace of her anywhere. I sat down, my hands shaking, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My mind raced with questions, but there were no answers. It was as if Lily had never existed at all. And then, just as I was about to close the app, a new notification popped up. Lily has unmatched you. My blood ran cold. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. She had vanished from the restaurant, from my phone, from my life. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there. Watching. I should have known better than to swipe right on my ex, but I figured, why not? We had a good thing for a while, and the breakup wasn't nasty, just one of those mutual, it's not working anymore, situations. Plus, she was still pretty, and I was feeling nostalgic. We matched, and within minutes, she messaged me. Hey, stranger. Miss me? Her tone was playful, and I thought, maybe this was fate. Maybe we could rekindle what we had, or at least catch up and see where it goes. We agreed to grab coffee later that week, and when we met up, it was actually nice. Comfortable, even. We talked about what we'd been up to, work, family, all the small stuff. She laughed at my jokes like she used to, and I'll admit, I was feeling the vibe. But after that coffee, things took a strange turn. She started showing up at places I frequented, but not in a cute, oh, hey, fancy seeing you here, kind of way. It was more like, she knew exactly where I'd be. I'd mention in passing that I was grabbing drinks with the guys, and guess who would conveniently show up at the same bar? At first, I brushed it off as a coincidence, but the coincidences started piling up. Then, she started texting me every day, even though we hadn't agreed to meet again. How was your day? What are you doing tonight? You free for dinner tomorrow? It felt like she was trying to slip back into my life like we hadn't broken up. I didn't mind at first, but then the frequency of her texts became suffocating. She was acting like we were still together, and it was starting to feel like too much. One night, I was out on a different date, yes, with someone else from Tinder, when my phone buzzed. It was her. I saw you, the message read. She's cute. My heart sank. I looked around the restaurant, scanning the crowd, but I didn't see her. My date noticed the way I froze, my eyes darting around the restaurant. "Everything okay?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, my heart was racing. How had she seen me? Was she here, or just messing with me? "Excuse me for a second," I muttered, grabbing my phone and heading toward the bathroom. I checked the message again. "I saw you. She's cute." No follow-up, no explanation, just those 6 words hanging in the air like a threat. My brain flashed back to why we had broken up the first time. We'd only dated for a few weeks. Everything seemed perfect at first, but then little things started happening. I'd catch her outside my apartment when she hadn't been invited. She'd somehow bump into me at random places, even though I hadn't told her I'd be there. And then there were the moments when she'd just watch me. We'd be sitting on the couch, and I'd catch her staring at me like she was studying my every move. It creeped me out enough that I ended things, but I hadn't thought she was dangerous. Just off. Now, I wasn't so sure. I stepped out of the bathroom, trying to act casual, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was close, maybe watching me from a dark corner of the restaurant. My date smiled at me as I sat back down, but my mind was elsewhere. I was hyper-aware of every person who walked by, half expecting to see her lurking near the exit. After dinner, I walked my date to her car, making sure to check every shadowed corner of the parking lot. Once she drove off, I practically bolted to my own car, feeling like I was being watched the entire time. I checked the back seat, just to be sure, before driving off, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. But I knew I wasn't. That night, I got another text. "I miss us. Can we talk?" It was harmless enough, but there was something unsettling about it now. I decided to block her number. It seemed drastic, but I couldn't keep playing along with whatever game she was trying to pull. For a few days, it worked. No messages, no random sightings, nothing. I started to feel like maybe she had finally gotten a hint. Then I came home one evening and found a small package at my door. There was no return address, no note, just a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside was a picture of us from the time we'd dated, one I hadn't even remembered taking. In the photo, we were at a park, laughing, holding hands. But something was off about the picture. My face had been scratched out, leaving only her side of the photo intact. Beneath it was a small note, handwritten in messy letters, "We belong together." At this point, I was done. This had gone way beyond clingy or weird. I called the police, explaining the situation. They took a report, but without any concrete threats or evidence of harassment beyond the messages and package, there wasn't much they could do. They advised me to keep my distance and document any future incidents. For the next week, I was on edge. I changed my routine, different coffee shops, new routes to work, but every time I thought I'd shaken her, I'd catch glimpses of her out of the corner of my eye. Sometimes, she'd be in the distance, just watching. She never approached, never made a scene. Just watched. Finally, I decided enough was enough. I had a lawyer send her a formal cease and desist letter. It was a long shot, but I hoped it would scare her off. To my surprise, it worked. For the first time in what felt like forever, she stopped. No more texts, no more surprise appearances, no more packages at my door. She vanished as suddenly as she had re-entered my life. It took a while for the anxiety to fade, but slowly, I started feeling normal again. Months passed without a word from her. I eventually deleted Tinder, swearing off online dating for a while. Every now and then, I'd think about her, wondering where she was, if she'd moved on, if she was doing this to someone else. But I didn't let myself dwell on it too much. One day, I was walking through the park, the same one from that old photo. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the trees, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Just as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed with a new message. I hesitated, heart pounding, as I unlocked it. But it was just a friend. Nothing more. No sign of her, no cryptic messages, just the life I was finally getting back to. And that's where I chose to leave her, in the past. It all started late one night when I should have been asleep, but instead, I was mindlessly swiping on Tinder. You know how it goes, half awake, barely paying attention, and just hoping for a decent match. That's when I came across Jenna. Her profile picture was stunning. She had this wild, untamed look about her, messy hair, a slight smirk that made her seem like she knew something you didn't. Her bio, though, was a little odd, looking for someone who loves a little adventure. Come find me in the woods. I laughed to myself, thinking it was just some artsy, poetic nonsense that people throw into their profiles. But curiosity got the better of me. I swiped right, and to my surprise, we matched almost instantly. She messaged me first, which was a nice change. We chatted for a bit, and she was surprisingly cool. Funny, flirty, and she kept mentioning these woods she lived near. I live out here, close to nature, she said. You should come visit sometime. The air's cleaner, the stars are brighter. I half-jokingly asked, so, what? You live in a cabin like a fairy tale witch or something? She replied with a winky face, come find out. Over the next few weeks, we talked more and more. There was something about Jenna that pulled me in. She was different from anyone I'd met before. Not like the usual city girls I matched with, Jenna was mysterious, carefree, almost, too carefree. And she kept bringing up those woods. You'd love it here. You should come for a weekend. I'll make it worth your while, winky face. I told my friends about it. Dude, one of them said while we were having beers, you know this sounds like the setup for a horror movie, right? You go into the woods to meet some mysterious girl, and bam. Next thing you know, you're in a cult or worse. We all laughed, and yeah, they were right. It did sound sketchy. But honestly, I was intrigued. I needed an adventure. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? She's probably just into the whole rustic, earthy vibe. So, one Friday afternoon, I packed a bag, filled up the gas tank, and started the long drive out of the city. I had her directions saved in my phone. She'd mentioned that service could get spotty, but I figured it wouldn't be a big deal. The further I drove, the fewer cars I saw. The highways turned to back roads, and soon, I was deep into the woods. My GPS kept losing signal, and the paved roads disappeared into a single dirt track. My phone officially died on me about halfway down the road, so now I was driving blind, relying on memory. I should have turned back. But I didn't. I remember laughing to myself, like, this is insane. What am I doing? But there was this weird pull. Jenna's invitation, the way she had talked about the place, about being free out here, it was almost hypnotic. Finally, after what felt like hours of driving, I pulled up to the spot she described. But instead of some cute little cabin or cottage, there was, well, nothing. Just an old, decrepit cabin, the kind that looked like it was about to collapse on itself. The windows were shattered, the roof sagged, and the front door was barely hanging on by a hinge. It wasn't cozy or charming, it looked like a set from a horror movie. I got out of the car and stood there for a minute, just taking it all in. This has to be a joke, I muttered to myself. I tried to text her, but as predicted, no service. That's when I saw her. Jenna was standing at the edge of the woods, just beyond the clearing. She was wearing the same outfit from her profile picture, jeans and a flannel, her long hair spilling over her shoulders. She looked almost, out of place, like she didn't belong there, but at the same time, she was part of the scenery. She waved, and for a second, all the tension in my body eased. I waved back and started walking toward her, trying to shake off the unease in my gut. "This place is a little rustic," I called out, trying to make light of the situation. She didn't respond. Just kept smiling. And as I got closer, I realized something was off about her smile. It was too wide, too perfect. And her eyes, they didn't seem to blink. My skin started to crawl. I stopped walking when I was just a few feet from her. "You okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her smile didn't falter, and she just nodded slowly, her head tilting slightly to one side. Something wasn't right. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but before I could say anything else, a voice cut through the air. "Leave now." I whipped around, my heart pounding in my chest. The voice had come from the woods, but there was no one there. The trees stood silent, their branches swaying in the wind. I turned back to Jenna, and she was closer, too close. Her face was inches from mine, and her skin looked paler than before, almost translucent in the fading light. "Jenna?" I said, stepping back, but she stepped forward in perfect sync. Her smile hadn't moved, her eyes still unblinking. Then the voice came again, louder this time. "Leave. Now." I didn't need to be told a third time. I bolted back toward my car, my legs pumping as fast as they could. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel her behind me. I could hear her footsteps, the rustling of leaves as she followed. I fumbled with my keys, throwing myself into the driver's seat and slamming the door shut. I jammed the key into the ignition and floored it, kicking up dirt as I sped away. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, my heart stopped. Jenna was standing in the clearing, right where I had left her. But she wasn't moving. She was still smiling, still staring. Her body seemed frozen, like a mannequin, as if she hadn't chased me at all. I drove as fast as I could until I was out of the woods and back on a proper road. Only then did I pull over, shaking, and try to catch my breath. I looked at my phone, hoping for signal. A notification popped up. "Jenna unmatched you." I stared at the screen, my heart still racing, the terror slowly ebbing away. Needless to say, I won't be going back into the woods anytime soon. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. Your time and engagement mean the world to me. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And be sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support keeps this channel going, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.